Welcome back to the next Tailmaker video. We've had some laughs and some fun, but now we get to talk about Tailmaker's secret weapon. Blue links are the secret sauce of Tailmaker. I know I said it was a secret weapon, but it's like a sauce and a weapon. A sauce weapon. I'm going to show you a blue link, and at first, it'll seem like a pretty simple concept. It's the kind of feature that grows on you as you use it, and you gradually realize the power and versatility it creates. Soon, you start to design your logic around it. So it may take some time to really understand the power of this feature, but every journey starts with a single step. So here we go. We've got a node here where the player says goodbye. Maybe in our branching conversation, there are 10 different places where the player can choose to end the conversation. Rather than create 10 separate player nodes that say goodbye, we simply create one, copy it, and paste it as a link. This link is not a new node or line. It's simply a go-to function. When Tailmaker hits this link, it jumps to whatever location the master node is in and plays the master. Any conditions or actions on the master also come into play. So, in the case of our goodbye, you can paste it as a link anywhere, and if the player selects it, Tailmaker always jumps to the same location. Another easy example is in a topic picker conversation, where you might have a line like, "I'd like to talk about something else." This can be a link that will always take you back to the top of the topic picker structure. Simple, right? Of course, with blue links, you don't need to add clunky lines like, "I'd like to talk about something else," because you can just link the topics directly. It's a much smoother experience for the player. The most basic advantage of blue links is what it does for your line count and localization. Branching conversations, even lightly branched ones, can quickly bloat the line count and send localization off the charts. But a blue link is not a new node or line. It doesn't require voiceover recording or translation. It's not a node. It simply moves the conversation to the master node. In our earlier example where the player has 10 different places in a conversation to say goodbye, using blue links allows you to write, record, and translate one line for use in 10 different places. In fact, you could use one goodbye for every conversation the player might have with this NPC, so long as they are all contained in the same file within Tailmaker. Over the course of a project, this could have immense time and money savings. It also just makes narrative scripting less buggy, as it reduces line count. When structuring a branching conversation, it's super useful to be able to bring the entire flow back to one point. Knowing that a player will pass through a certain node no matter what choices they make allows you to guide the flow of the conversation and to set important actions on that node. It's often a great idea to bring the conversation back down to a single node right before an important choice. If you've let the player explore the conversation freely, they may think that all their previous choices brought them to this moment. But the only important choice is the one they will make next. Blue links allow you to do this easily in Tailmaker. No matter where the player roams in the conversation, you can jump them to the same spot without them knowing that you're moving them around. It's all seamless and behind the scenes. Remember our example earlier about only having one goodbye in the conversation? When you're designing a big, sprawling conversation, you can easily lose track of all the player's exit nodes. And you might need to set variables or actions on some of those exit nodes. With blue links, there's only one node. But after the player says goodbye, you can have multiple NPC responses with conditions so that the NPC responds to whatever state the relationship is with the player. If they just gave the player a quest, they can say, "Come back to me when you've got the Eternal Fire." If the player just completed a quest, they can say, "Thanks for bringing me the Eternal Fire. Check back later in case I have other bounties for you." So, the player gets a customized response after their goodbye. Critically, you can also set actions on those NPC lines if there is anything that needs to be set or incremented. Because these lines are all specific to different states, you will know exactly where the relationship is when a certain line plays, making these the safest lines on which to set actions. Here's another topic picker conversation, where the player chooses a topic and then the player character and NPC have a short conversation about it before returning the player to the menus at the top again. In this example, the player and the NPC have a tense exchange that ends with the player saying, "Yeah, well, I ain't a rat." And yet, players can jump right to another exchange where the two reminisce about good times they've had down at the pub. This dissonance reminds players that they're talking to a machine. But Tailmaker's scripting and blue links allow you to create segues between topics. If we add an action to the tense exchange where we set the Boolean tense to true, Then we can add a segue line over here at the top of the friendly exchange where the NPC acknowledges the shift in tone before linking back to the rest of the exchange. This is one of the several ways you can use scripting and Blue Links to create a seamless flow for the player. Another quick example. In many games, you can ask an NPC who they are over and over, and they'll dutifully repeat the same words each time. By using Blue Links, we can alter the lead into the answer so the NPC is responding to the fact that the player has asked this before. In fact, we can add other conditions too. If the player was very kind in the past, or did something that made them famous, the NPC can reference those things as well. But after the segue line, we can still Blue Link to the main body of the information the player was seeking. So the NPC feels super responsive and aware, but also tells the player what they need to know. In an earlier video, we saw how you can set actions on a node, and one of those actions was something called events. When this action runs, TaleMaker signals the game engine to activate an event in-game that has been defined in the engine. In this example, the player chooses a dialogue option to engage the atmospheric ionizer. When the player chooses this, TaleMaker tells the game to initiate the event lightning, and now we see the skies filled with lightning. From the player's perspective, this is different from all the booleans and counters being set and changed and tested in the background. With an event, the player makes a choice in dialogue and a world state changes. Almost every game team uses some kind of tool to write barks. We hope you can see with all of the features we've talked about so far that creating bark templates and files is remarkably easy in TaleMaker. The only feature related to barks that we do not yet have is randomization. This can be simulated using counters for conditionals and actions, but we are also planning to implement randomization in our development roadmap. All the conversation assets created by TaleMaker can be played in-game in any format, from a cinematic, to barks, to an interactive conversation with full UI. This includes ambient lines, one of the most common kinds of voiceover in any game. Here's an example.
No problem, my friend. We can't all be the pinnacle of intelligent life.
Hey, have you heard about the new Sonic upgrade modules in the
Notice that after the player moves through the doorway, the ambient dialogue gets attenuated. It's easy to set this in the engine after importing the TaleMaker assets. It's easy to learn the basics of TaleMaker. Because it is a hybrid view that most developers have never seen before, it can be a bit intimidating at first. However, we've seen that just messing around for an hour gets people over the intimidation factor, and they can be set up and creating narrative interactions very quickly. What's more exciting is what happens next. Over the next few hours, new users begin to realize the power that TaleMaker gives them, and they start finding new and inventive ways to use it in creating truly unique, impressive narrative interactions. That's it for this time, but come back next time for lots of interesting TaleMaker learning, and definitely cookies.